welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. We're so excited that the weather has cooled off a little bit and we're thinking that fall might be here.
This morning I actually got up early and went out deer hunting. I didn't get anything, but it was 51 degrees when I went out this morning and it was amazing. It was so nice to have those nice, cool, almost cold mornings starting out our days.
But the cooler weather also means it's time for us to start tearing down the garden. Kevin and I yesterday took out all of the tomato plants. That was a big project, a good project done. But before we do much else, there are some seeds that we want to be saving from the flowers and some of the beans and things that are in the garden to make sure that we have fresh seed for next year and before we just start taking everything down.
Yeah, by the time we get to this part of the summer or the end, I guess it's the beginning of fall, the only thing that's really still growing in the garden are our peppers. We have a really long growing season here in southern Missouri, and peppers will really keep growing right up until our first frost. Now, last year, our first frost was on October 14th, so it could be coming, you know, any time now, really. So we just have to play it by ear. Hopefully we'll still have some good harvest from the remaining peppers, but everything else in the garden is pretty much done at this point.
But today we're not worrying about peppers. I've got peppers on the agenda for a couple days from now. Today we're going to be harvesting some seeds. Wanted to show you which ones we're going to be harvesting and saving for next year, and then just tell you a little bit about the seed saving process for those plants.
And then later we're going to take a trip down to the greenhouse. We want to show you guys how all of the plants that we have started for the winter are coming along. I think you're going to be amazed. We have a ton of food growing that we're going to be able to grow all winter long. So let's head out into the garden first and start saving some seeds.
Well, the last few years, I haven't had a whole lot of time to devote to growing flowers. So this summer, I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do something I hope is very easy. I've always loved the thought of having a row of gorgeous flowers throughout the summer right on the outside of the garden. So when Kevin and I were designing the garden layout for this year, we tilled up a spot right outside of the garden here, and I took all my zinnia seeds. A lot of them are really old. I didn't know if they were still good or not, and I just kind of mixed them up into a bowl, and I just sprinkled them in this whole length of the garden. To my surprise, several of the types of seeds were still good. They germinated and they turned into a really wonderful display of various colors of zinnias right outside the garden. Now, I definitely want to do something like this again in the future. Now, it is the end of the growing season, so they're not looking as beautiful as they did throughout the summer. They're still looking good. I can still cut a bunch of these for arrangements in the house, but because I used all of my zinnia seeds at the beginning of the summer to plant this, I don't have any left. So I want to save some of these seeds because they're some of my most favorite colors, and I'll be able to plant them next year for free. So let me just show you some of the beautiful colors that I have here. I really felt blessed over the summer because those that germinated are actually my favorite zinnia colors, and they're just gorgeous. These yellow zinnias right here are just, I really love yellow. It's just so bright and cheery. There's this purple with a yellow center that I absolutely love. It's kind of a hot pink, maybe light purple color. And then one of the things that really shocked me over the summer is just how absolutely gorgeous these red zinnias are. I'm actually really kind of more of a pink and purple and yellow flower kind of lady, but these gorgeous blood red zinnias, they just struck me all summer long. There's one more color that did well. Only a few of them germinated, but it really helped with the bouquets that I brought into the house way down here. And those are these beautiful white zinnias. So I want to show you really how easy it is to gather and save seeds from these flowers, and then you'll have like as many seeds as you could possibly want for next year. Harvesting seed for flowers is so easy, you guys. Basically, you look for a flower that is completely dead, because all of the seeds are still attached around the top. So in this case, these are the purple zinnias here. And I know that because I'm just following the plant by where there is a purple zinnia, and here is a flower head that's completely dead. I'm just gonna snip it off. Now, because we have had rain in the last couple of days, it's possible that this flower head is not completely dry. So I'm actually just gonna save this entire flower head in an open jar. I've labeled the jar. These are my purple zinnias. And the flower heads that I'm collecting, I'm just gonna put them in the jar and I'm gonna let them dry 100% in the house. Now, I do wanna show you what these zinnia seeds look like. So I'm gonna take some of them off this flower head in my hand so that you can see what they look like. And once I get into the house and these are all dry, this is like exactly what I'm gonna do when I'm ready to really harvest the seeds. You just pull them out like that. You can see there's a seed right there. And you can separate all of the seeds from kind of this chaff for planting, or you can just keep them together and like plant it all together and it'll be fine. The seeds will germinate, the chaff will just kind of decompose, add some nutrients back into the soil, but that's really as easy as it gets for flowers. So I'm just gonna put all of that in here. Right next to that flower head that I just harvested is another one here. It's completely dead, it's completely brown. I can pull some of these dead petals off. I probably wouldn't need to. I'm just gonna harvest that and put that in my jar. I'm just gonna harvest, 4 or 5 of these kind of dead flower heads, and that's what I'm gonna use to replant these purple ones in the spring. Now, the process is the same for all of the different colors, and I have a different jar labeled for each different color. So I'm just gonna go through and harvest as many of the kind of dead flowers as I feel like I need for each color, and I'll be set for spring. Now, these white flowers over here, there aren't a lot of the flower heads that are dead. This one is kind of partial. It had a bunch of seeds above it, but they've already blown away or the birds have eaten them. So I'm gonna take that one. And this one here is on its way. It's, still has a little bit of white petals here, the dead ones here. So I have 2 options really. I can wait and come back, hopefully remember to come and harvest seeds from here. Or what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it anyway and just make sure that it gets a lot of airflow so it can dry out really nicely in the house, and hopefully enough of the seeds are mature enough that they'll be basically, good, fertile, and will germinate next spring. I'm gonna just take my chances on here, hoping that these are gonna be great. And then if I think of it, or if I'm walking by here and I see more later on in a couple weeks, I'll probably grab some. But I don't want to miss my chance to get some of these white zinnias because these had the fewest number of flowers that produced this summer. So I want to make sure that I don't miss out on planting a lot of them again next year.
All of you know that my favorite thing in the garden are tomatoes. But since we already pulled out all of the tomatoes, the okra are my next favorite thing, and that's what we're going to save seed from next. So this year we grew my favorite variety of okra, and actually this is the only variety we grow anymore. These are the Clemson Spineless. They always do well. They always way overproduce what we expect, and so for that reason we plant them year after year. Now, okra is super easy to save seed from. In fact, there's really nothing to it at all. All you need to do is you need to find some of the pods that are completely dried up. And you can see we've left a lot of pods on here. One, because we've already harvested everything we possibly need or want. And really, by the time we get to this point where the plants are this big, even the smaller okra, when they first come on, get woody super fast. So these last ones on the plants, we always just let these dry out and save for seed. So we find one that's completely brown and dry, kind of like Sarah did with the flowers. We're just going to cut it off. And you can see that this pod is, you know, like I said, completely dry. Inside of this pod is all of the seeds. What I like to do, honestly, is just cut about 10 or 15 of these, which is enough for about a dozen families to plant okra. But if you count about 10 or 15 of these, I just bring them in the house and I save them in the pod all winter long. Then next spring, I will actually cut the pod open and take all of the seeds out. But I'm assuming you guys want to see what the seeds look like, so we're going to cut this one today. I'm going to cut the tip off, and we'll just kind of, once they get dry from sitting all winter, a lot of times they'll just crack open on their own. But you can see when we crack this, inside of there, it is just filled with seeds. There are probably 100 or more seeds in this one pod, I would imagine. And they're a good sized seed. And so really, if you were to save, if for just a normal sized garden, if you were to save one pod each year, this would be way more than you need for the following year. But because we like to save some of these and we actually package them up and sell them at the farmer's market in the spring, I'm going to save more than we need. So I'm going to cut probably 10 or 15 of these if I can find them today, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. While we're over here by the okra, there's something I want to show you guys. Look at these peppers right here. These are Tabasco peppers. You know, like Tabasco sauce that you buy in the store? These are Tabasco peppers. They always kind of remind me of Christmas trees. They just, when they start to be all different colors and the way that they grow kind of straight up in the air, reminds me of the bulbs on Christmas trees. Anyway, these are just getting to the point where they're going to be ready to harvest. Let me tell you, these are hot little suckers. I like hot peppers. One year I took just a tiny bite of one of these out of the garden, and you guys, I about passed out. It was that hot. It was insane. Now, Sarah uses these to make homemade Tabasco sauce. I think if you guys are interested, she might do a video about making homemade Tabasco sauce. Let us know in the comments if you're interested in seeing that. But I can tell you, there is nothing better than homemade Tabasco sauce. All right, we're going to move on. I think we have some beans to harvest yet, and then we're going to head down to the greenhouse.
Now, you'd probably never know it if I didn't tell you, but this row was our row of green beans, our contender green beans. And we've let them completely die back and let a lot of the pods that we didn't need anymore because we had enough green beans harvested and canned. We let them mature on the plants so that we could pick them and harvest the beans inside for seed. Now, unlike okra, where you only need like 12 seeds or less for an entire year's growing because you plant them so far apart, with green beans, we plant these like 6 inches apart. So for a 50-foot row, or if you're doing 2 rows or a large volume, you actually need a lot of seeds. So we have let some of these pods just dry on the vine. We can just pick them the way that they are, put them in a basket, bring them into the house and let them completely dry out so there's no question that they're completely dry. Just put them in the basket, and then I can open one of these up and show you what the seeds look like. Now the beans right now look pretty sad. The bean pods themselves, they look blackish, brownish, but inside are the gorgeous beans that you'll use for seeds. This is something that is very nice to do on a cold day. When it's too cold outside in the winter, too snowy, rainy, icy, whatever, with your hot cup of coffee by the wood stove is to open these up. So that's one of the main reasons why we just harvest the pods right now, and we do the bean harvesting later during the winter. So we're just gonna harvest as many of these as we can, and because we grow a 50-foot row of these beans, we need at least 100 seeds, so we need quite a few of these pods. We also like to share with our friends and also sell some at the farmer's market in the spring. So we need quite a few, so I'm glad that we left quite a few of them on here to dry and ripen. So you guys, beans are another really simple thing to harvest your own seeds. You can buy them once, have a great harvest, leave some of them on to die back, and then harvest your seeds for next year. Then you only have to buy the seeds once.
Well, we're down in the greenhouse, and you can see all of our buckets here behind us. Now, we planted all of these just a little over 2 weeks ago. We've got 58 of these tubs in here that we're going to be growing in this winter. And while things are just starting to die off and wrap up in the big garden, here in the greenhouse, new life is starting and things are just getting started for the winter.
This is going to be really exciting for this fall, winter, and early spring to have all of this fresh food growing for our family. If we can provide fresh food for our family over the winter with a greenhouse like this, it actually takes some of the pressure off on growing so much and such big gardens in the summer.
So we thought we'd just take you real quickly through the greenhouse today, show you how everything is doing. There's only 2 different things out of all of these buckets that didn't come up, and I think really it's because it's still just a little too warm for those things, so we're going to have to try them again. But let's go down the rows. We'll real quickly show you how each thing is doing and remind you of what we're growing.
So on this row here, and really the star of the show right now, are the sugar snap peas. We have 3 buckets growing and they are doing really well. We're about to bring some tomato cages over to put them in here so that they have a place to grow onto. We have 2 buckets of bunching onions, which we'll use as like green onions. We have a bucket of chives. Now this one didn't come up. I think we had a bad envelope of seeds, so we're going to replant that. But the garlic chives are coming up and they are doing really well. Next up, our cilantro. Last winter we grew cilantro and it was the best growth that we ever had in cilantro was over the winter, so we're going to do that again. We have 3 buckets of carrots and all 3 of them have germinated and are doing well. And then a bucket of ruby red chard and 3 buckets here that I'm actually still waiting. I'm going to be putting garlic in here, but I don't have them planted quite yet.
Down these center 2 rows, we only had 1 thing that didn't come up. I'll show you that in a minute. But let's start here at the back. These first 2 pots here are kale. We have red Russian and dinosaur kale. These next ones here, these are beets and these are radishes. Then we get into the 2 buckets that didn't come up. These are parsnips. Parsnips are notorious for being hard to germinate, and we didn't do a very good job at it. I do think that it is at least partially because it is still just too warm. I did a little research, and parsnips really like 50 to 60 degree weather for germinating. We've still had days in the 90s, so it has just been too hot. So we're either going to try those again or put something else there, like maybe some more radishes. That's something that'll come up fast. When we get down here, we have turnips over on this side. Over on this side, we have rutabagas and bok choy. And then down here, all of these buckets from here all the way to the end are different varieties of lettuce. We have some nice red lettuces. We have some nice green lettuces. We have some romaine type lettuces at the front. So all of these buckets here are lettuces and they are coming up great.
Now these first 4 buckets here, we had cucumbers planted, but we decided to just take them out because we knew we were running out of time before they would actually produce cucumbers before frost. So we decided to pull them out and we planted kohlrabi in here. They have germinated, but they're a little bit behind schedule. They'll do fine. They just have some catching up to do. Next up we have spinach. Now the spinach germinated and it has been so hot they're kind of suffering. They're holding on, they're hanging in there and growing. We hit them with some fish emulsion the other day and it seems like they're kind of perking up a little bit. They also get a lot more direct sun here and so it gets hotter here, which spinach really doesn't like. But they're doing well and I think they're going to do well over the winter. We planted a lot of that. And then here at the end, we planted some collards and they are doing well also. Now everything that has its first true leaves, we've gone through and given it 1 treatment of the fish emulsion. We're going to continue doing that at least once, maybe twice a week until they're doing really well. We have some plans for some other kinds of fertilizer throughout the winter and the fall. So we'll talk to you guys about that as we get to that point.
So as you can see, everything in the greenhouse is doing great. Now we planted all of these in hopes that the weather was about to start cooling down, and once you know, as soon as we planted everything, it seems like the weather just shot back up. We've had a lot of days in the last 2 weeks that were up in the 90s. We still have 1 day coming up where it's forecast to be 88 degrees. All of these are cool weather plants and they love the cool weather. And so far, they just haven't gotten a lot of cool weather to thrive in.
But under the circumstances, they're doing really well. We're super confident that once it cools down, they're just going to take off.
Right.
And we're just really dreaming of the time that these are just abundant and huge and we can bring you guys out here to just see how wonderful everything is doing. This is an unheated greenhouse. We're going to be able to show you that you can grow in an unheated greenhouse all winter long, food that you can eat and you don't have to worry about it all dying.
Yeah, we were amazed last year in our other greenhouse just how well everything did, not just staying alive, but actually growing all winter long. It was really eye-opening to us, and it really gives us a lot of hope for what we can do in this even bigger greenhouse.
So you guys, we look forward to bringing you more videos about the things that we're growing here in the greenhouse, especially over this winter. We hope you stick around to see all of that in the next coming months.
So what are you guys doing on your homestead right now? Are you starting to wrap up your gardens as well? I hope that you are saving some of your seed. Remember this last spring was in pretty short supply. Sometimes it was hard to find, which makes it all that much more important for each of us to be saving our own seed. Let us know what's going on your homesteads right now. We would love to hear from you.
You guys, if you're enjoying our videos, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. And really the best way that you can help us here on the homestead is really just to share our videos on your social media. We would love it and appreciate it. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.